he loves making people put their tongues in like man-made
Stuff.
orifices that you just like shouldn't have, and making it really sexual, and you're like, what are you doing?
Hi, I'm Kat.
And I'm Gabe. And we're
the Ghouls next door.
In the future, where we don't feel anything. For people listening, we're the Ghouls Next Door, a media literacy show from a horror lens where we explore the real-life historical genetic ways, reasonings behind our cinematic fears. Yeah, whatever. In our New Year, New Me series, we are covering crimes of the future, because body modification is your new you. And in this place,
evolution,
it's like new people. New year, new people.
Yeah. So it was just like adaptability, humans.
Yeah,
we are just like the bugs and microbes. Eating the plastic.
Just like the bugs and microbes eating the plastic. You're right. We Crimes of the Future is David Cronenberg's most recent work. He'd been away for quite a while. We had covered David Cronenberg in the way back early days of Ghouls. It was like episode like 12 with guest Debbie Redman, who talked about her love of Cronenberg, but also the how his work affected her. Like I remember her talking about growing up and her relationship with TV really kind of affected the way that she saw herself and kind of understood her place in the world. And so Cronenberg's like body technology fascination added to that. Yeah, so Crimes of the Future is his latest. I am still working on it. We'll one day get Brandon Cronenberg, his son, Possessor. I definitely want to cover at some point in the future. But this just felt like, well, the last time we did New Year, New Me, we did American Mary and body modification. So I was like, oh, of course.
You have to do some body modification in there, even if it's biological.
Yeah. And so I was like, let's do this. And I was fully prepared to be grossed out. Because again, we watched because we covered Cronenberg, not just like a film. And it was also when we were really ambitious. So we watched a few of his films, and I just remember Existenz really.
Yeah.
He loves making people put their tongues in like man-made orifices that you just like shouldn't have, and making it really sexual, and you're like, what are you doing?
I have noticed the theme that in most of the movies watched by him, everyone always seems like they are seconds away from losing their ever-loving minds and just making out with each other.
Yeah, just going ham on bodies. Yeah, everyone is hella horny all the time.
Always.
For flesh and technology.
Yeah.
His flesh technology take of things, like, it's not quite this, it's a little different in this film for sure, but Existenz, I just remember that's really what stuck with me, was like the really like fleshy hard drives, and it had like the umbilical cord that connected you, and it was like this is definitely that. For anyone watching, Kat and I are dressed apart. I'm just like this lady who like slices up her face for like funsies. But I'm also wearing the Fly shirt that I'm not allowed to wear anywhere because it grosses people out, including myself.
Yeah, and I'm the guy in the movie who grows organs within himself as art, and they go in there and they tattoo them and then make like a whole display and art show out of surgery, and it's craziness.
There is so much to talk about for this film because there's so many like threads, and there's just so much information because it's like he designed this whole world and you don't have a lot of time. And so there's
Yeah.
so many threads. I do not talk about the tattooing like at all. I mentioned it once. There's one word says tattoo. Never talk about it in my section.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
I to this moment don't fully understand what happened in the entire movie, and that's okay. I recognize that like it was a little maybe a little too smart for me. I was just like, I don't know what's happening here.
I was reading this article,
Um,
and at one point it was like, it means nothing. It says nothing. Like it says a lot, and the person like talks
yeah.
about all the things that it does say, but at the end it's like, also, it's okay if it doesn't say anything. Like it's okay if things just like stop, or they
Yeah. It's
just
just
say what
like,
they
what
say.
is this new weird world? Look at it.
Ooh, wacky.
Whoa.
What a
Imagine if we
world.
grew organs that weren't
Yeah.
supposed to be there and they made crazy things happen.
Yeah.
You know all
I
that
just love when they
pollution?
were like,
Eat it.
"Oh, you have a new organ and it's functioning." And it's like, "How do you know?" Like, it's new,
Yeah.
we don't know what it's supposed to do. So you don't know if it's functioning. It could be malfunctioning. It could be like its function could be like to steal from the other organ. Like what
Yeah.
like your appendix. Like we don't need it.
That is true, which is so crazy. There's so many things that like I guess like through time our bodies are gonna like adapt to the new environment and make irrelevant. Like for
Yeah.
example, I was born without wisdom teeth.
Yeah.
I
Don't
don't
need them.
know. Don't need them. I don't need wisdom. Who needs that? Um
Otherwise, what are you gonna do? Understand this movie?
yeah, that's why.
Yeah,
Uh
that's what it is.
because I was born without wisdom teeth. I can't understand Cronenberg's brain.
um, I can't either. I'm not gonna lie. So, why don't we why don't we listen to me give it a shot,
Do
figure it
it.
out. Listen, what you're going to experience in my section of this episode is listening to me as I was writing the script slowly start to figure some stuff out. Like it's
Yeah.
literally while I was writing it, I was like, oh, that's because of this.
Oh. I
I found
love
a
that.
I found a lot of articles, but I have not read all of them. And even when I was reading them, I was like, "Oh, yeah, like I get those things." But I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah.
Usually I'm able to find like a YouTube video that explains stuff to me.
And we
And I
couldn't
couldn't
find that.
I
Yeah.
couldn't find so if anyone has something that's not us on YouTube, let me know. I'm here for it. So Crimes of the Future is from 2022 last year and is about humans adapt to a synthetic environment with new transformations and mutations. With his partner Caprice, Saul Tenser, celebrity performance artist, publicly showcases the metamorphosis of his organs in avant-garde performances and is directed by David Cronenberg.
Mhm.
Mr. Cronenberg. So I will also like in as always in our show notes, we'll have all those reviews that I found in like
Yeah.
explanations. So if you are like, what were you even saying? Totally fine. Um also our show is usually very serious. I'm gonna be a complete goofball. So just bear with me. In
That's
the
allowed.
in the hopefully very distant future, humans have evolved to no longer feel pain or much of anything, and illnesses are infrequent and pandemics are a thing of the past. And as someone who is currently COVID positive, that sounds lovely. In this painless future, surgery is the new sex. They say it a bunch. They want you to know.
They want you to know.
They want you to know that. Or like Kristen Stewart's like, it's the new sex. Like, girl, could
Just like
you
breathing so much.
but
That's they say
just take several million steps back? She's so weird. I loved that for her. Honestly, I was like,
that. Yeah, no, it
this is
was
a
great
great role for
casting.
her. Mouth breathing all over the place. It was great.
Yeah.
Um, an art form has arisen where one man, Saul Tenser, grows new organs and has them removed in an overly sexual way in front of an overly horny crowd.
Yep.
It's like everything is horny. These organs are perplexing because no one knows what they're designed to do or what to make of them. And I guess you could say he has a red thumb. You get it?
Uh-huh.
Because he grows organs instead of plants.
Yeah.
Um,
And blood is red, so I do
you know,
get it. I picked it up.
thank you. My delirium. Cronenberg's future plays much into his aesthetic of flesh technology, and this future tech looks kind of primitive, and it's inspired by the earthen exoskeletons of insects or the creativity of the Flintstones. At one
Cool.
point, I was like, "What in the Flintstones is happening?" Because it felt very much like, okay, they found the bones of this dinosaur and they
And they
crafted it
made
to
it
make your
into a
car.
robot. Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
like the bird who like so I was like, this is you're right next door. This is like if the Jetsons and the Flintstones were they had a baby.
Combined. Yeah.
Um, so Cronenberg is well known for his stomach churning and perplexing dives into society, our obsession with technology, and the outright filth that is humanity. And he gets a kick out of making you squirm, slicing up the body and modifying it into a forced evolution, which is like that's what he's known for. He does other stuff too,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's like I knew what I was getting into when I put it on. Um, and Crimes of the Future is no different. It begs the question, is human evolution over, and will we need to adapt manually to give future generations a fighting chance? In the digital apocalypse, as we have discussed on a previous Ghouls episode during our Apocalypse series, shows us a world in which our evolutions are based in technology, our adaptations assisted by the digital world, and the machines an extension of our bodies. This
Mhm.
blend of human and machine will become seamless, but that's not able to distinguish where the flesh ends and the tech begins, which is right up,
Cyberpunk.
yeah, cyberpunk, but like even like yeah, it's definitely cyberpunk,
It's like
which
more fleshy cyberpunk.
yeah, fleshy cyberpunk, where like they're not embracing the chrome future, they're
Yeah.
trying to rely on like an antique future. It kind of reminds me of like Fallout, where they're
Yeah.
stuck as if we like propelled ourselves forward in time, but from a further past. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. It makes sense to me. That's I was like, like if a long time ago we went to whatever.
I'm
I will
gonna
say
hype you
this.
up. You don't gotta worry about it.
Thank you. Cronenberg has always been really talented with practical effects or like just actually making people do this or getting really creative with like making it in the space. And in this film, there
Mhm.
was a lot more digital, like CGI happening. And
Mhm.
I saw this like the one of the only YouTube videos I found was like him talking about it. He was like very excited about this film. And he like they had this scene where one of the like exoskeleton things that's like the casket
Uh-huh.
like it like pushes in and then it moves and he's like you can see that that's not real, that's not a real camera, that's done in the computer. And I was like, yeah, we know that, David, like it's very clearly technology, like it looks digital. But it was just so funny to see how excited he was to be like that's not real. I was like, yeah. So
It's
after
cool.
seeing
I'm gonna
him
let him be hype about it.
yeah, after seeing him so excited, I was like, okay, this is just like he did all those practical effects partly out of necessity, also because it was like his way of doing things. Um,
Yeah.
but now he has like now in this new age, he has access to like updated equipment and technology, so he's gonna try out some cool stuff.
Yeah, he's gonna lean in.
Yeah, which is let him live his life. Um, Cronenberg's future isn't too far off from this envisioned future, only in that the changes do become genetic and affect the generations to become. So that digital future I was
Yeah.
talking about. Cronenberg's tech in this film is disturbing as always, and the devices are designed to support everyday functions, such as sleeping without pain or digesting easier while eating.
Yep.
The latter of which is a skeletal chair that rocks around and spoon feeds you. It's hilarious. It is the funniest thing. What a goofy contraption. And it
Yeah,
seems
it just seems like this is not what it would look like in
like
the
that
future.
that cannot be helpful. You cannot convince me that that's something that someone enjoys. Like it couldn't even get into their mouth. Like they looked whatever. You can't tell me
Everyone,
that.
yeah, looked really uncomfortable. And I guess it's like in this world where people can't experience pain, but I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, you could experience agitation, which
Yeah.
is what I would be when it wasn't finding my mouth.
Yeah.
I want someone to share the science with me of moving yourself around and being all wiggly helps digestion. I want someone to find that article for me that motivated him to make that chair. Okay.
I do
Um,
wonder, yeah.
It seemed less than ideal, but had me thinking about accessible furniture design. Because I was like, there are things made to help people who are differently abled to just like assist them. I was like, which, like, it's kinda in that vein, but I don't think this is actually, very helpful.
Yeah.
And this is one of the many themes explored in the film. But this technology, however, is a hedonistic pursuit rather than a purely practical one, because humans can't feel and the world has been adapted around them to complement that, becoming numbing and catering to their any need, resulting in further comfort. And without the stressors and challenges of life as we know it, humans seek out more reckless and wild things for pleasure, including surgery or just good old slicing up your skin
Mhm.
with your friends. And
Yeah.
embracing the orgasmic pleasure of your skin flesh being sliced up. So fun.
Yep.
And once humans have evolved past the basic needs, free of pain and suffering, our bodies become simply vessels, reduced to storage devices for our minds, which is like Cronenberg's favorite thing.
Yeah.
Um, and art, as we see it in this film, is the final pursuit of humanity. Imagine what we could create were humanity no longer to need. Like if we just no
Yeah.
longer needed anything, we just existed. I had this whole conversation with Kat about that the other day. Like if we just had all our basic needs met, imagine what cool things we could do, like the advancement in technology and like accessibility of the world and like art if people just didn't have to survive. Like it'd be super rad. Yeah, I don't think it
Yeah.
would be this. This world,
Well,
I'm
yeah,
gonna say it's not this.
if anything, this world is like the opposite of that in my mind. It's
Yeah.
like you're watching humans evolve and you're like, "Stop it." It's
Yeah,
it's
that's super
very
true.
much like neurotypicals being like, "No," to anyone who's different, you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
that I get. And then
yeah.
or like just people just not being open to like differences in people and
Yeah.
being like, "Stop it. We're not gonna help you. You have to sit in this uncomfortable chair and eat food that
This
literally your body can't digest because that's what everyone does.
yeah,
Just do it."
and this world sucks, like, anyway.
Yeah.
In an interview for the Canadian radio show Q, Cronenberg explains his fascination with humans and our connection to technology, saying, "The body, for me, is the essence of human existence. It is what we are, and everything comes from that, including technology. In the 1950s, technology was this inhuman stuff from outer space that threatened us, strange weapons and stuff like that. For me, technology has always been ultra human and a complete extension of what we are. Our fists become, missiles. So technology also becomes what we are, for the good and the bad. And you see it with every new technology. You see the internet, you see social media. It's wonderful and it's horrible. Horrible and horrifying. At the same time, it brings out the worst of us and also the best. So to me, it's just natural to go there. I'm diving into the essence of what we are and the essence of the human condition. And Crimes of the Future takes me there.
Hmm.
Sure. No,
Interesting.
it super does. It has that like it makes sense. People can't feel they're weird now. So
Yes.
Crimes of the Future follows Saul Tenser, who's a man with
Me.
or as Cat stressed, a man with accelerated evolution syndrome, which has him grow new organs with unknown functions, and his partner in future crimes, Caprice, who holds surgery performances to remove those pesky extra organs. And the film opens with a seemingly normal child on the beach, and we cut to this not so normal child later as he brushes his teeth, and he's clearly craving more than dinner. And with the strongest case of pica I've ever seen, he begins chomping away at the plastic trash bin near the sink. And there's
Yeah.
this foaming white liquid that seeps from his mouth, allowing him to eat this Willy Wonka furniture item. Um, his
Yeah.
mother is then troubled by this creature and unalives the boy as he sleeps. It
Yeah.
is like, what a way to start a film.
Yeah, with like so little context, and it took so long to figure out why.
Yeah, and not till like the end, and you're like, okay, but still, like,
Yeah.
but it also like her character makes a lot of sense because her character is essentially like people, like society not
Yeah.
wanting to like change. Anyway,
Oh,
um,
very much, yeah.
yeah, we hear later as she leaves a message for her now ex-husband that she blames him for the creature and tells him to come get his son. And this father named Lang Dotrice does so and mourns the loss of his son. And this plastic-eating boy is incredibly important. And we later find that he is the next step in human evolution. And as Kat said, it takes a long time to get there. You start
Yeah.
out like, did that boy just eat that plastic? And then you're like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we doing?
And not because of the plastic.
And we just cut to Viggo Mortensen in a really shaky bed,
Yeah.
grimacing in pain. Lang and his band of merry men have surgically changed themselves to be able to digest and consume plastic. And Lang explains to Tensor in a later scene that there had been a long hunger, a rumbling in his tummy that only plastic could satisfy, and
Yep.
these modified humans now eat Soylent Purple, a plastic protein bar
Yeah.
reminiscent of the bug bars from Snowpiercer, only much better for the environment.
Yeah.
And less gross, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Um, and Lang enlists Tensor's help to do a live autopsy as one of his shows, where they will dissect Brecken, Lang's son, and show that he is naturally evolved and has inherited the forced evolution his father underwent. Meanwhile, Tensor is working with a detective named Cope, who has a strange growth on his own that he never addresses.
Yeah. It's
He
never
like
brought
brings
up
it up
again.
and they're like, you should do something about that. And then it's like, and Cope, for some reason, doesn't want the world to know about the plastic eaters or the potential for future born plastic eaters. So Cope enlists the help of the incredibly uncomfortable to watch, listen to, and be around Timlin, played by Kristen Stewart, who swaps out Brecken's organs in an act of sabotage. Um, which, like, you learn, and I'm like, why? The
Yeah, I
ending
really didn't
felt
get her
rushed.
motivation because, like, she was like all about his organs. You know, it's just
Yeah.
weird. It was like weird. I was like, why would you do that?
Well, she was also very like traditional.
That's
Like she
fair.
was like very by the book. You have to do it this way. Um I mean, he's an anomaly for sure, but like she loved that he like categorized all his organs and stuff, you know? She loves that stuff.
Yeah.
So to up to
I guess like
just
in her mind for science. And then yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Timlin works for the National Organ Registry, which isn't it doesn't exist, but
Yeah,
they're
it's not
like
legal,
it's not
but
legal, but they're like, we require that people do this, but it's like you can't require anything, you don't exist.
yeah. It's really
Uh
weird. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. Designed to tag, tattoo, and document the new organs because of reasons, lest they wander off somewhere or end up in the next generation. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't 100% understand this film or any of Cronenberg's films for that matter, but I do what I can. And there's
Yeah.
quite a deal of subplots and missing exposition that make the film a tad difficult to comprehend with only one watch through, which is all we had time for. And other
Yeah.
than the government is evil theme, I can't understand why they would be so against plastic eating humans. Though I can't remember a time when the government or powers that be have been okay or on board with any change of any kind.
Yeah.
There's certainly a desire to keep things pure and controlled, and even Cope's neglect of his own abnormalities is strange and harmful. So caught up in maintaining the status quo, he's willing to ignore the growth, which could be very well end him.
Yeah.
It's like that's how like like dug into this narrative you are.
Yeah.
Um, and because humans can't feel pain, they look to surgery for pleasure. And humanity's current obsession or fascination with body modification aren't quite to this level, though there is a level of harm that plays into it. Ghouls, as I mentioned, covered American Mary and body modification the last time we had our New Year, New Me series. And in that exploration, we found that it's the motivations behind the modifications to be what mattered the most.
Yeah.
So, if you are changing your outward appearance in an attempt to please an outside force, such as the toxic impossible beauty standards, or perhaps a romantic partner, then we highly recommend against it. However, if your modifications are a desire to change your outward appearance to match who you are inside, then absolutely. In the
Yeah.
case of the plastic eaters, their motives are also somewhat beneficial. Imagine what we could do for the environment with some plastic eaters cleaning up the ocean.
Yeah.
um it'd be pretty rad. And for me, Crimes of the Future is an eco horror. The grim, dark, and prehistoric future is an omen, a warning, and also a hope. Though I felt the film was missing exposition and explanation,
Yeah.
like I could have done with like a title card, or just I
Yeah.
said to Kat, I was like, I really hope it. I wish it opened up the way Repo the Genetic Opera does, where it's just like this. This is the future. People
Here is all the plot.
loan out organs, and then they can get repossessed. And I was like, all right, I'm in. I got it. I got the background. I know what happens. I couldn't figure out anything. I was like, what? Why do people feel?
Yeah.
And
There's a
everything's
lot left
whispering.
unsaid for sure.
Ugh,
And then you just are pretty confused. And
yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah. The building felt really distant, like it's resting in Cronenberg's mind somewhere else, and it leaves us with the whispers of a society. We're made to pick up the pieces and puzzle together a world in which people cannot feel, organs grow willy nilly, and people eat plastic. And an
Yeah.
article on MovieWeb titled Crimes of the Future explained, dissecting David Cronenberg's new movie by Matthew Miller, and one of the only articles I actually read, features an interview with an industrial ecologist, Roland Geyer, who explains, at the current rate, we are really heading toward a plastic planet. At some point, we will run out of room to put it. And later, Chelsea Rockman, a professor of ecology at the University of Toronto, explains in that same article, some may argue we already have, and now it's found in every nook and cranny of our oceans.
It's
Mailer,
true.
yeah, it's everywhere. So Mailer goes on to stress the impact of the plastics on humans, saying microplastics are being discovered in everything from rice to tap water, shellfish to sardines. And in 2018, considerable amounts were found in human feces for the first time. Plastic is
Yep.
showing up in children's blood and in human placenta, which was gross enough to begin with. Um,
Yep.
which I completely agree. Ultimately, the film felt much like the artistic surgeries of this world, a performance and a warning. It explores the fascinating flaws of evolution while questioning our place in this world. If you can stomach the graphic slices and open wound makeouts that Cronenberg loves, then you may find the world fascinating enough to endure. I wish we'd spent more time with one or two of the threads rather than exploring all of them. At
Yeah.
times, it was overwhelming to keep up, and I couldn't tell you what the router and burst, like what they were up to, or what the inner beauty pageant meant. Though it is kind of ironic that the inner beauty pageant was still physical.
Yeah. It had nothing to do with who you were as a person and everything to do with your organs
Which
for
again is
whatever
like
reason.
a representation of this world. Like we
Yeah.
have all this time now, we don't feel pain. Now we don't get sick. We could just exist. And what do we choose to invest in? Like
Still
like
our flesh
slicing each other
prisons.
up. Yeah, like
Yeah, like
so
why?
bizarre. Why would we do that? And I think that might have been the point. That's what I'm
That's
like,
yeah.
wait a second. Um, the film is the film is very Cronenberg, and for all its discomfort and moody glimpses into the future, it was oddly hopeful. And I'm all for the future of plastic eaters, of our chance to right what we've wronged and fix this planet. And let's see what kind of evolution we can force upon ourselves next.
But honestly, I just think not every film is made for us, and that's
That's true.
okay. And I think because of one, your trypophobia, and also my pretty vehement dislike of gore,
Yeah,
ironically, as being horror fans, Cronenberg is just not for us, and
we
that's
always be
totally
pushing
fine
our
because he
limits.
is for somebody. Somebody likes these films, and they're loud.
Yeah.
They're creative and weird, and there's something kind of magical about how weird they are.
Yes.
Like, this mind exists, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it's okay. They're not for us, and that's fine.
Yeah. I put this in the same camp as like, I'm really glad he went into filmmaking, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
Like there are certain minds where I'm like Stephen King, I'm like, I'm really glad he's wrote books. You
Yeah.
know? Who where would he be? You know?
Yeah.
If he would like I'm afraid. I'm afraid to know where he would have put that energy, where he would have put those thoughts did if he didn't write them down. And if Cronenberg didn't put these on the screen, what would he be
Flesh
doing?
tech he'd be inventing flesh technology. It's
I
okay.
don't know. I don't know.
As
I
long
mean,
as
he is.
it's
He's kind of inventing it
allowed
on screen. So,
or consensual, I don't know.
yeah.
Make my organs flesh technology. No, actually, don't do that to me specifically. It's just interesting. Um, so this one was bonkers. Like, what a truly bonkers film. And everything I learned as a result of watching this film, like one, a lot of the plot, like while it was like shocking in the fact it was like really gross, did not necessarily surprise me. Just was just like a little tangent. Like it does not shock me at all that the society with which we have now would notice that something different was happening and then murder all those people. Does not shock me. There's no that's not
Checks
a
out.
surprise. It's what they do all the time. Most of our recent history included is just them doing that. So if there
Yeah.
was like this new evolution of humans, that started eating plastic, instead of being like, nice, we have a super big plastic problem.
Yeah.
This will solve it. Instead, they'd be like, oh, but plastic humans aren't actually humans. So we should like make them
Yeah.
either have to hide or we'll murder them, or they would definitely like enslave them. Like it's
Yeah.
100%. Our society is made of garbage, and
Yeah.
that's what would happen. So in that way, it's not that far fetched
Yeah. But
as
also
a
it's like
concept.
big food, like if you just think of like coal versus like clean energy, like
Yeah.
anyone who's like how hard they're trying to keep coal around, like that's what they would do. They'd be like,
Yeah.
well, yes, that would fix the environment, but then we can't sell fast food.
Yeah. And I mean, plastic is also like, because it's made out of natural gas and fossil fuels,
Yeah. Yeah.
which apparently we're short on. So I don't know why it's our main thing we make. But I also learned in my journey that the plastic industry is also pretty bonkers.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. There's a lot of just like weird stuff happening there. And I watched a video on Climate Town's YouTube channel, as well as like a documentary and another documentary that he links in those videos. But it's all about how like plastic recycling is a scam, quote unquote, because we live in a capitalistic society. And I followed up on a lot of the research that they linked in the video, and it was pretty interesting. And ultimately, it really just explained in an entertaining way that because capitalism exists and recycling plastic is not profitable, that it doesn't really happen unless it's like one of the 10 or two out of the 10 kinds of plastic that exist.
Yep.
And as I said, the main reason being that we live in a capitalistic society. So, what is convenient and cheap will always win within that system. And additionally, most plastic products, especially single use plastic products, are more expensive to recycle than they are to dispose of and replace. Meaning that the many of the plastics that are created will never be recycled, and that's just because it's not profitable to do so. Um, and the end result is that plastics are dumped in landfills, oceans, across our planet, and literally from the top of all the tallest mountains to the deepest parts of the ocean, instead of being recycled. And there's not enough information really about what that's going to do, because it's happened in the last like 50 to 80 years, to know like what the damage is going to be. But we're seeing the planet and our bodies and everything else react in real time.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of anxiety around this. And every so often in the Climate Town video, he kind of went into like how every few years we have like a panic
Yeah.
about plastics. And then like everyone thinks it's like kind of calmed down. And then 5 years later, there's another panic about plastics. And ultimately, like nothing is actually happening that's helping the plastic situation. But it's just like they have good marketing.
Yeah.
Plastics make a lot of money. So they have really good marketing and can do some pretty wild stuff. So that's my little tangent about that. But if you were interested in learning about that, the video was very interesting. They had follow-up documentaries that also explained it in ways that were like entertaining, informative, and like I guess thought-provoking is a good word.
Yeah, you can also check out our ecological apocalypse episode to learn about how the planet is being damaged as well, to get even more depressed. Woo-hoo!
So exciting.
There's a goals for that.
There's a goals for that. And yeah, so the ultimate result is that there's so much happening to these ecosystems, to our world, that we just don't have the information around, and it's spreading at a rate that by the time we do know, it's going to be too late,
Uh-huh.
unless we really make some drastic action. And luckily, our ecosystems are adapting to this new environment, which is interesting. But the big question is, what will that adapting change our planet into? And will we be able to adapt to live in that new version of our planet?
So real.
Um, so, the production of plastics has an impact on our overall health. The problem mainly being that chemicals that are added to plastics and the way in which microplastics spread. So, there has been a lot of research done on the additives to plastic, which are already known for causing illness, infertility, and other issues. Their attachment to plastics is concerning because of how plastics disperse. And the way they spread causes them to disperse until they become airborne, which is fun. Um, so they literally have the means to infiltrate even our cell structures and our bodies, our
Oh,
blood,
geez.
everything in there. And in an article on National Geographic titled Microplastics Are in Our Bodies, How Much Do They Harm Us? They go into detail on what is impacted by these tiny particles. And they say a few years ago, as microplastics began turning up in the guts of fish and shellfish, the concern was focused on a safety of seafood. Shellfish were a particular worry because, in their case, unlike fish, we eat the entire animal, stomach, microplastics, and all. In 2017, Belgian scientists announced that seafood lovers could consume up to 11,000 plastic particles a year just by eating mussels, a favorite dish in that country. This spring, scientists from the Netherlands and the UK announced that they had found tiny plastic particles living in humans in two places where they hadn't been seen before, deep inside the lungs of surgical patients and in the blood of anonymous donors. Neither of the two studies answered the questions of possible harm, but together they signaled a shift in the focus and concern about plastics towards the cloud of airborne dust particles we live in. Some of them, so small, they can penetrate deep inside the body and even inside cells in ways that larger microplastics can't. So ultimately, they're spreading at a rate that's kind of alarming to the point where it's like literally not environmentally sound to bury bodies in the ground anymore.
Mm.
It's also not environmentally sound to drink rainwater anymore because of how many chemicals and microplastics and PFAs and other things that are in it.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, there's things you can do to get around it, but essentially, consuming microplastics is basically unavoidable at this point. They're literally everywhere in everything we breathe all the time, everything we drink, but especially if you consume shellfish. So if you're allergic to shellfish, blessings to you. That's your body's way of being like, no.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, evolution, I guess. I don't know. And the main reason that this is concerning, I feel like there's a lot of obvious ones, but it's because there's not enough information surrounding the long term impact of plastic on our bodies. We do have evidence that the additives of plastic can cause breathing problems, hormonal disruptions, as I said, infertility, and other concerns. But in not knowing that answer of like how damaging it is and with the rate with which microplastics spread, we may find out too late just how much damage microplastics have done and continue to do.
I will say it's probably a really good guess, that it's gonna be bad, so we probably should just not.
Yeah.
I think we can
Yeah.
err on the side of caution, you know?
But that's not profitable, Gabe. So, but they're
That's so
not.
real, that's
They're
so
not
real.
going to.
Ugh,
Everything that I learned
ugh.
about plastic recycling was okay, but like they could do it. They have the technology, but it's expensive. So they're
Yeah.
not going to.
Watching any Climate Town video makes you, like, wanna just hide in a hole because 'cause you're like, "Wow, the world is hopeless."
Yeah.
It's so evil, it's
Like
so
pieces.
insidiously
Yeah.
evil.
And I mean, the Climate Town video does go into like pretty good detail about like what can be done in terms of like legislation is our way out of this. Removing single-use plastic in all of our spaces is essential to making this less horrible. And that is only going to be done legislatively because you can change your own personal habits all you want. You can switch to non-plastic containers all you want.
Yeah,
It's not gonna matter if the
doesn't matter.
government is not supporting those policies because they do most damage. Rich people
Yeah.
in the government do the most damage. So it really just has to come from the ground or the top down,
Uh-huh.
uh, or the bottom up in terms of voting all the people who are doing the crappy stuff out because they're being paid off and they're not doing their jobs.
Yeah,
Um,
big
and then,
plastic.
yeah, among other things, there's a long list of things our government gets paid to just be like, I think it's fine. Let them all go. And then bad things happen,
Yep.
shockingly enough. In a Guardian article titled Microplastics Cause Damage to Human Cells, studies show the research analyzed 17 previous studies which looked at the toxicological impacts of microplastics on human cell lines. The scientists compared the levels of microplastics at which damage was caused to the cells with the levels consumed by people through contaminated drinking water, seafood, and table salt, apparently. They found specific types of harm, cell death, allergic response, and damage to cell walls were caused by the levels of microplastics that people ingest. Harmful effects on cells are in many cases the initiating events of health effects, said Evangelos Donopoulos of Hull York Medical School, UK, and who led the research published in the Journal of Hazardous Materials. He said, "We should be concerned right now. Right now there really isn't a way to protect ourselves. And future research could make it possible to identify the most contaminated foods and have us avoid them," he said. But the ultimate solution was to stop the loss of plastic waste. Once the plastic is in the environment, we can't really get rid of it or get it out of the environment. And ultimately, the more that I think about it, if shellfish is filled with the most microplastics, it would really make sense why so many people are allergic to shellfish. Maybe it has nothing to do with the fish and everything to do with the microplastics. I don't know. As I'll say in a second, I'm really not a scientist. I don't know how any of this works, but the people in these articles do sound like they know what they're talking about.
They're
So
scientists.
yeah, they actually are real scientists. So, and I'm quoting them directly. So maybe not fantastically, but I'm doing my best. And I read a few other articles specifically about plastic eating microbes and bugs that are evolving to eat plastic, which is super
That's
interesting.
rad.
Just like, or Gabe found some of them and I found other ones. So it's a little bit of both. And what's interesting about this is kind of like the adaptability of our environments. And we'll kind of just have to see if that transfers to us. In another article on The Guardian, which I found a lot of articles on The Guardian, there's titled "Bugs Across Globe Are Evolving to Eat Plastic, Study Finds." They go through how various bugs, microbes, and other creatures are evolving to eat plastic, specifically saying microbes in oceans and soils across the globe are evolving to eat plastic. According to a study, the research scanned more than 200 million genes found in the DNA samples taken from the environment and found 30,000 different enzymes that could degrade 10 different types of plastic. If you're me, you may have initially thought, wow, that sounds really complicated. What the heck does that mean? Well, I'm not a scientist, but the scientist in the article said the results provide evidence of a measurable effect of plastic pollution on the global microbial ecology. So,
Yeah. So it does that.
And they continue to say that millions of tons of plastic are dumped into the environment every year, and the pollution now pervades the planet from the summit of Mount Everest to the deepest oceans. Reducing the amounts of plastics used is vital as the proper collection and treatment of waste. And the main issue seems to be that we have not yet found a way to degrade and recycle plastics that is cheaper than creating new plastics. That seems like the solution because obviously in this profit hungry society, that is the only way it's going to get done. But the adapting of the environment is super interesting. Apparently they could, if they do get this to where it needs to be, that they could use enzymes to rapidly break down plastics to their building blocks, which is like natural gas and fossil fuels. And this would enable new products to be made from the old ones, cutting the need for virgin plastic production. The new research provides many new enzymes to be investigated and adapted for industrial use. And what's interesting about that is just like that there's creatures and animals that are evolving to meet the need to break down plastic. This is happening in the oceans just because the oceans specifically are getting the bulk of our plastic dumping.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that we would see this specifically there because to survive, if the animals within the ocean are going to survive, something is going to need to get rid of that plastic. So they continue on to say that we found multiple lines of evidence supporting the fact that the global microbiome's plastic degrading potential correlates strongly with the measurements of environmental plastic pollution, a significant demonstration of how the environment is responding to the pressures we are placing on it, which was said by Professor Aletskej at Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden. A different scientist from the same university named Zan Zermick says that we did not expect to find such a large number of enzymes across so many different microbes and environmental habitats. That is a surprising discovery that really illustrates the scale of an issue. Specifically, that evolution is taking place at such a rate within
Yeah.
these ecosystems because of just how much plastic is in there. And I mean, the real solution is to remove the plastics from those environments. But within our world, it seems uncertain that that's going to happen anytime soon, unless there's like people who know about it and like really care. Or alternatively, we harvest and train these microbes to eat these plastics.
Uh-huh.
And the explosion of plastics happened in the last 70 years.
Mhm.
We went from 2 M tons to 380, which I assume means million, 380 million tons a year, which is a lot. 2 to 380, that is many. So there's just like a lot out there for these microbial enzymes to have to deal with. And I think as abstract and crazy as this Cronenbergian future sounds, it also doesn't sound too crazy in that, like, if we're going to survive in this new world, our bodies might have to do the same thing, or we might have to like learn to adapt and find symbiotic relationships with these like enzymes, creatures, what have you.
Uh-huh.
Um, or honestly, tattoo and rearrange our organs. I don't know. It really seems pretty bizarre. But I highly recommend like looking into the Climate Towns video and like all the adjacent resources that he listed, because it did seem like a lot needs to happen with the plastic industry itself. There's lots of things that have been done marketing wise to intentionally make it so people think something's happening that's positive when there's not. And a specific example of this is on a lot of plastic containers. I have one next to me. They list a little symbol on it that would suggest that it is recyclable. But the kicker there is that it's not actually the recycling symbol. It is a symbol that specifically is just to say it's like resin identification number, which has nothing to do with recycling. But they kind of, since the recycling symbol itself, like it's a marketing item, was public domain,
Uh-huh.
the plastic companies purchased it and made it their resin identification number so that people, when have all their Earth Day pictures, everyone associates that symbol with the 3 arrows
Uh-huh.
as a recycling symbol. So they put that on all the plastic products, or at least the majority of them, because I can't find it right now, but I've seen it where they have like little numbers inside, which is, you think it's a kind of recycling thing, and it's not. It's just this
Probably on the
resin
bottom.
identification number.
You check the bottom.
I don't want to spill the remnants of the Gatorade.
Yeah, I have Powerade here. I think it's like 1 and 2 because there's numbers. The numbers mean I think 1 and
1
2
and
are the
2.
only ones that are actually recyclable, and the rest are we send to different countries who then
I found it. It's a 4, so it's not
so it's not
recyclable.
recyclable.
Damn.
Exactly. Yeah, and so they send it to another country, and then that country throws it out, and it's not our fault anymore. So
Mhm.
we can say, like, our companies can say, we aren't polluting the environment. We're not
Is
putting
it
the
a 4?
the toxicities in there. Those other people are doing that, and it has nothing to do with us. But we're just sending it over there. So, yeah, highly, highly recommend Climate Town. Also, I remember watching this documentary. I think we did it for our ecological episode. But it was like, there's the trash islands, and
Mhm.
uh, essentially they were like, when these birds would die, they would like cut them open, and their stomachs are just full of
Of
plastic.
plastic, yeah.
Or my partner follows this Reddit thread or Reddit subreddit, I don't know what they're called, of like under the water scary things in the ocean. And
Mhm.
the deepest depths of the ocean, it was like at the very bottom, it was like nothing lives down here, no one can get down here. And they got this picture of it, and there was like a Coke can. It was like, oh, okay, yeah.
That makes sense to me. It
Yeah.
does. It does make sense to me. Um, but yeah, ultimately, a lot of work has been done to make you think that these things are recyclable when they're not. So you don't realize how bad the problem is until it's too late.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're gonna
Plastics are
evolve
in
to be
our
able to
blood
eat
already.
plastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's probably not going to be in our generation. I imagine that would be in a much more distant future.
Yeah, I hope so in some way. But if we do find like if we genetically modify or make something that can eat plastic, I hope we then, are think a few steps ahead and also think of ways to not let those things get out of hand. I'm thinking Horizon Zero Dawn. little, little of that going on in my brain. Of
Yeah.
let's not make it so that these robots consume biology. That doesn't sound good.
Oh
We
yeah,
can
no, no,
try to
no,
manner.
100%. Like little microbots in our bodies consuming all the little plastic things, and then they're like, "Now we really let now most of our body is plastic because of what's
Yeah,
happening." They just eat people now. There's a lot of implications that could take place. Also, like every single movie that's about like infertility as
yeah,
the future of our planet,
yeah,
that is a result of plastic chemicals. It's like
yep,
chemicals that are additives to plastic. So if you're also worried about that, that's another motivator.
yeah. And Kat, what was your hypothesis or idea for what people could do to be able to consume plastic?
I've told you them. I wrote them down and I sent them to you. There's a lot of possible things that we could do. But I really think one of them is forming a symbiotic relationship with parasites of some kind, like whales. You
Uh
know,
huh.
we could be like the whales in the ocean where they like form a symbiotic relationship with the little fish that eat all the parasites on their body.
Mm-hmm.
Or we could be like rhinos that form a symbiotic relationship with like the little things that eat the flies,
Yeah.
in their faces.
Uh huh.
There's so many options available. And one thing that I said that I thought would be really funny is if we got back into leeches, like if leeches became back in fashion, specifically with like we somehow train them to specifically just remove plastics. We train leeches to remove plastics from our body. Sounds crazy. I don't know if that could actually happen. I don't even know if it's possible, but it would be
Yeah.
really interesting. Or if we just have like little bug friends and then we could turn
Yeah.
them like into fashion statements.
Yeah.
This is
I
all
like.
stuff rich people could do right
Yeah.
now. Kim Kardashian.
I like your little passengers idea. Like you just got the little guy inside, he's eating all the plastic and makes you
Yeah.
healthy.
Start
I'm here
a
for it.
fashion line of like parasite or microplastic eating bugs that you
Yeah.
wear as like fashion on your face, you
I
know?
will say the person who's most likely to do that would not be a Kardashian, but would be Paris Hilton. Like
Oh,
straight out. One, she's got like
fashion icon,
degrees.
genius.
Yeah, genius, IQ.
Yeah,
Like she cares
science.
about she has a lot of charities and she cares about the environment. If anyone's gonna do
All
it,
right,
it's gotta
Paris
be so
Hilton.
Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton. Plastics are hurting the environment.
Yeah,
You're on it.
yeah.
You're on it.
Partner
I
with
trust
a
you.
scientist.
I trust you. If you'll figure whatever you figure out, I'm here for you as long as it's affordable, and
If
that's the
it's
biggest
a
trick.
cute leech,
Yeah.
you wear
Do
them
they
as
get little
earrings,
hats?
You wear them as earrings. They
Yeah.
stick to your ears and they suck all the microplastics out. It
I'm
sounds
down
great.
with whatever it is as long as it doesn't make everyone horny. Okay?
Yeah.
Just like that was a lot. A lot of very close talking, and everyone was on the cusp of an orgasm at all times
Yes. It
in
was a
this
lot.
film.
It was very much a lot.
It was
So
like,
much. And I was like,
"Are you
never
ready for breakfast?" It was like,
I
"No, I
don't
don't
know
wanna
if
get
I've
in the
ever
jiggly chair."
talked that way in my entire life. And it was just really wild how
Yeah,
breathy
yeah,
everyone just got into speaking. It was like
yeah.
the whole time.
Kristen Stewart raised my anxiety levels to 100.
She was
Like,
made for
she
that
was
role
so
though.
intense,
I know, but
it
she was
stressed me out.
made for that role.
Absolutely, but I was like, "I can't breathe when you're around." And not in
Yes.
a good way, like, you're
She was
stressing me out.
very unhinged in this movie, but in a fun way,
Yeah, I love
that
it,
was
love that
very
for her.
stressful. Um,
If you watched this David Cronenberg film, tell us what you think about it. If you watch other Cronenberg films, tell us what you think about those. You could maybe
yeah,
listen to that episode. It's a long time ago. The quality is not great. I don't remember what we said in it, but
I
you're
don't
welcome
remember
to
either.
listen. You could go search into the archives of Ghouls to find it. Um, like I said, we had a really great
Also,
guest for it.
yeah, and if you watch this movie and, like, totally understood everything about it,
Yeah,
and you wanna make, like, a documentary length explanation
yeah,
of what it was, I will watch that because I
yeah,
am genuinely interested. I feel like this movie was saying stuff, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Um, and it just went over my head
yeah.
because,
I feel
as I
like I
said,
got it.
I'm not a scientist. I am kinda smart, but
You
we
are
both
smart.
kinda have COVID brain.
Yeah, yeah, we both have good brain. Give kind of some slack. Also,
Yeah,
this is a tricky movie to deal with.
yeah.
I
I
think
also
I
think
think I
it's,
was
like,
doing it.
ironic as heck that we didn't get it from each other,
Yeah, but we did pass it on
but
to
we
each
got
other,
it at
which
the
was
same
fun.
time.
Hilarious. That's what
Woo!
2023 is. New year, new us. We're sick. There's plastics in the air. There's plastics in
In our
yourself.
blood, in our lungs. No
Plastics
wonder I
in
got
your
asthmas.
bod. Plastics in the
That's how the
fish.
zombie apocalypse spreads.
Plastics?
Spores, microplastics
Yeah.
combine, spread everywhere. Now everyone's a zombie because it's airborne. No? Okay,
'Cause
just me? Just me?
I was on board about your little passenger parasite friends.
Okay, I don't think it should happen that way. I'm just saying if it were to happen anyway,
Yeah,
it would make sense because 'cause
yeah,
they're in everything.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, watch the movie or don't, whatever you want. Cronenberg's
Couldn't
not for
tell you.
everyone, like Kat said,
No, that's
but
fine.
they are for somebody, right? Like David Cronenberg is definitely someone's cup of tea, someone's cup of shaky tea on their shaky chair. And I'm glad we watched it. I'm glad we gave it a shot.
Oh, yeah, it
Look,
is ridiculous and fun. It's given me something to, like, think about, I guess,
yeah,
even though it was pretty chaotic.
yeah,
I have no regrets in watching it, nor do
no,
I think it was horrible. It was just like, wow, that was a lot.
yeah. I just remember being really angry that they were upset about the plastic people because I was like,
Oh, yeah.
this answers so many. Like, I get it. I get why they're angry because they're like people are the worst. But like, oh,
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't want to be a plastic eater, but I don't know. Maybe I'd take one for the team. I'm not like a big foodie, I'm not
Mhm.
crazy about it.
Yeah, honestly, it
I'm
would
not
solve
good
a
at
lot of
eating as it is.
problems. It's really wild that, like, it's not surprising, like, the people in charge are not the smartest on our planet, so they
What?
definitely would not be doing the right thing in this situation, but it
Yeah.
is enraging, because they would solve a major problem if you could serve plastic as food and
Yeah.
it not harm our
Yeah.
bodies.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's
Why is
like
it a big
clean
let them
energy.
eat plastic. Let them.
Like, be
Why
angry
does it
about
matter?
clean energy when you're
Because if
like,
it doesn't
"Oh, okay."
harm them, like, they actually need it for sustenance, solves so many problems.
Yeah, it actually helps them, yeah.
Mhm.
It's like Don't Look Up. You just translate, like, meteor to climate change, and it makes sense, and that's, like, what this is. It's like, "Oh, we could do renewable resources," you know, or big coal, you know? We could do
Yeah.
clean coal, which is fiction. That's fictional. Um, so yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Cronenberg gets it. I don't get Cronenberg, but I get it. And yeah, it was a fun episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Closes out our new year, new me. So now we're old again,
Mhm.
and next week starts our new series, which is uh, Tainted Love.
Mhm.
Um, 'Cause it's February, get it?
Yeah.
Uh,
Romance.
yeah. So, don't get married.
Delete your kids,
Yeah,
or your kids will eat plastic.
and then your partner will try to unalive
No.
them. Or they're the new
Or
plastic
or you
eaters.
raise that beautiful plastic eating baby and
He
you
was so
let them live
cute.
their lives.
His hair is beautiful. I loved
Mhm.
him. Little pica baby.
Let
Alright,
them let 'em do. It's
let him
okay.
live. Okay, bye.
Bye. What if I just started eating this?
Deep
Okay, but
cut,
like,
deep cut, deep cut.
what if?
But what if you
It would
just
be
started eating
really.
plastic? That would be pretty impressive.
It would be the most method thing I've
Yeah.
ever done on this show.
I
I
would be
just
really
wanna.
impressed. So,